Rain hissed against the windshield as Officer Brad Hensley's patrol lights carved red and blue scars through the night. The black sedan ahead had rolled past a stop sign, but he didn't hesitate. When the woman stepped out, umbrella trembling in her hand, she was all graced, all poised, wrapped in an ivory coat that didn't belong on this side of town. Her voice was calm, cultured. "Officer, is there a problem?" Brad's jaw tightened. "License and registration. Now." Her name, Alicia Monroe, looked too polished on the ID. He didn't see fear in her eyes, and that unsettled him more than defiance ever could. "Step out of the vehicle," he ordered again, louder this time. A trickle of rain traced down her cheek like a tear. "I just told you who I am," she said softly. "You're making a mistake." He cuffed her anyway. Cameras clicked from passing phones. The umbrella fell, white fabric flattening into the mud like surrender dot at the station. She sat in silence, the fluorescent lights making her skin gleam like a quiet accusation. Brad smirked, convinced he'd taught another lesson. Then the TV above the desk flickered to life-breaking news. International supermodel Alicia Monroe detained in wrongful arrest incident. Every officer froze. The phone on Brad's belt began to vibrate. Over and over. Alicia looked up, eyes sharp, voice calm. "You wanted to make me invisible," she said. "Now everyone sees you." Outside, the rain stopped. Inside, the silence became unbearable. The chief's door opened. "Hensley, my office." Now, Brad's throat went dry as the world he controlled for one small moment began to collapse around him. The night glowed with city haze, wet asphalt catching reflections of amber streetlights and neon signs. Alicia Monroe's Tesla hummed softly through the quiet stretch of North Delray Avenue. The air smelled of rain and exhaust, a mix she'd come to associate with coming home from long nights under flashing cameras. Her phone buzzed, a text from her manager. "Beautiful speech tonight, trending already." She smiled faintly, then glanced up. Blue and red lights erupted behind her like sudden thunder. She pulled over, window down halfway, hands visible, always visible. The officer's flashlight cut across her face. "Evening, ma'am. You aware you rolled through a stop back there?" "I slowed to a full stop," she replied evenly. "Not what I saw." His voice was casual, but there was that undertoned control disguised as politeness. He leaned closer. "License and registration." Alicia handed over her documents. The officer, Brad Hensley, his badge glinting wet under the drizzle, glanced between her photo and her real face, lips tightening. "You live around here?" "Yes. Big house up in Hillside Drive, huh?" He said it like an accusation, not an address. Alicia didn't answer. "Step out of the car." "Excuse me." "Routine check." She hesitated, eyes flicking toward the dashcam mounted in his cruiser. "Is there a reason, officer?" His tone sharpened. "You resisting." She opened the door slowly, rain dampening her coat. Pedestrians glanced but moved on. No one interfered. No one ever did. Red circled her like a wolf scenting unease. "Pop the trunk." "That's unnecessary." "Then you've got something to hide." Alicia met his gaze steady, unflinching. "Only my patience," he smirked. "Ma'am, I'm asking nicely." He wasn't. She knew it. The air around them thickened, charged with the invisible weight of centuries. Brad reached for his cuffs. "Hands behind your back." Her voice stayed calm. "You're making a mistake." "Funny. That's what they all say." The metallic click of handcuffs snapped through the rain. "Sir, please," Alicia began, but the rest drowned under his radio chatter. Her car door hung open, headlights beaming into the drizzle like searchlights over a battlefield. "Got a female subject. Possible non-competencies," Brad reported. "She's not resisting," said a voice from a passing car. Someone filmed. Brad shot a glare, but the camera lens didn't flinch. "Stay in your vehicle," he barked, grabbing Alicia's arm harder than necessary. She winced, breath sharp. "You're hurting me." He leaned close, whispering low enough for only her to hear. "You people always make it harder than it has to be." Something inside her cracked but didn't break. She said nothing. The cruiser door slammed as they drove off. Alicia's reflection blurred in the rain-streaked window. Her heartbeat steadied into defiance. She wasn't invisible anymore. The cell smelled of bleach and damp concrete. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead, a sound too sharp, too constant. Alicia sat on a narrow metal bench, her wrists still marked red from the cuffs. Her coat, once pristine, lay crumpled beside her streaks like bruises on silk. Across from her, two women, huddled together, whispering. One was young, maybe 20, her eyeliner smudged. The other, older, face lined with weariness that came from knowing the system too long. You knew here? The older woman asked. Alicia nodded. I shouldn't be here. The woman gave a hollow laugh. That's what we all say, doesn't matter. A guard strolled by, eyes skimming over them without seeing. Alicia followed his gaze. He didn't look at faces, just uniforms, just categories. The young woman leaned closer. What did they say you did? Rolled through a stop sign. That earned another bitter laugh. They cuffed you for that. Alicia hesitated. I think they cuffed me for something else. Silence spread. The truth didn't need elaboration. Footsteps echoed Officer Hensley's boots, distinct in their deliberate rhythm. He stopped outside the bars, smirking. You comfortable, Miss Monroe? She stood slowly. You'll regret this. Oh, I'm sure I will, he said, pretending not to recognize the faint tremor in his tone. You people always make things bigger than they are. Alicia held his gaze. We don't make them bigger. You make them smaller. His jaw tensed. Then he turned and left. When the door shut, the older woman spoke softly. You talk back like that to a cop. Alicia's reply was quiet. He doesn't scare me. Not anymore. But inside, her chest burned a slow, controlled fire. She could feel humiliation pressing like a weight on her ribs. Yet beneath it something colder, sharper, began to form. Clarity. A guard approached hours later, monotone. You're being processed for release. Just like that. Someone posted bail. The women looked at her, half envy, half disbelief. Good for you, the younger whispered. Don't forget us when you get out. Alicia met her eyes. I won't. In the hallway, as the officer led her out, she saw herself reflected in the glass hair disheveled, makeup streaked, posture still upright, a supermodel in a holding cell, contradiction made flesh. They handed back her phone. It buzzed, non-stop. Notifications, missed calls, messages, her world bleeding back in. The screen lit up with one video thumbnail. Police arrest supermodel Alicia Monroe. Caught on camera, her stomach dropped. Who posted this? The desk officer shrugged. Looks like the internet's already on it. She stepped into the night, camera flashes waiting beyond the precinct doors. The same lights that once adored her now demanded explanation. The air outside was colder, heavier. Somewhere behind her, Brad Hensley stood at the window of the booking desk, watching her go. He didn't yet know his name was already trending. And Alicia, walking into the swarm of lights, knew something irreversible had begun. The morning news exploded before sunrise. Supermodel Alicia Monroe arrested in police incident. Video goes viral overnight. Read the chyron beneath her image. Alicia's face filled every screen, defiant, rain-soaked, cuffed. The raw footage looped endlessly. A symbol now, not a person. In her penthouse living room, Alicia sat motionless. The city skyline glimmered beyond floor-to-ceiling glass, indifferent and beautiful. Her phone pulsed with unread messages, brands, reporters, agents, friends, all wanting a statement. Her assistant, Maya, hovered by the window, guilt in her posture. I posted it, she confessed quietly. The video, people had to see. Alicia turned, eyes steady. You did the right thing. Maya's voice broke. They're tearing him apart online. That officer Brad Hensley. His name's out. Alicia didn't smile. Good. Maybe now someone listens. Across town, the police precinct buzzed like a shaken hive. Phones haven't stopped ringing, muttered Sergeant Wallace. Chief wants this contained yesterday. Hensley sat at his desk, arms crossed, pretending the chaos didn't touch him. Media exaggeration, he said. She resisted. The sergeant shot him a look. Body cam says otherwise. Brad's confidence faltered. It'll blow over. Wallace slammed a folder onto his desk. It's not blowing over. You cuffed a woman who's on Vogue's cover this month, Brad muttered. Didn't know who she was. That's the problem. Genius. Brad's radio crackled. All personnel, do not comment to press. He glanced toward the break room where officers whispered. The laughter was gone, replaced by sidelong glances. The same men who once backed him now stepped around him like he carried disease. Back at Alicia's apartment, journalists had gathered outside the building. The hum of cameras reached up through the windows. Maya handed her a robe and coffee. They want a statement, she said. Everyone does. Alicia's hands trembled slightly as she held the cup. They'll twist it if I speak too soon. Then when I decide the story's mine again. She scrolled through social media. Hashtags burned across every post. Hashtag justice for Alicia. Hashtag stop profiling. Hashtag do you see her now? Each clip replayed the same few seconds. Her calm voice, his aggression. the cuffs clicking shut. It should have made her feel vindicated. It didn't. The world watching her humiliation on repeat felt like a second violation. Maya whispered, "We could sue them, right?" Alicia didn't look up. "We will, but not just them." Her reflection in the window looked different, harder, older. Fame had always been control. Cameras by invitation, smiles rehearsed. Now, she was on display without consent. She put down her coffee. "Get my lawyer. I want every second of that footage archived. No one buries this." By noon, reporters had cornered Chief Donnelly outside the precinct. Was the arrest racially motivated? Why was she detained without probable cause? The chief's forced smile held. "We're conducting a full review." Officer Hensley acted within standard procedure pending investigation. A journalist shot back, "You call that procedure?" Flashbulbs flared. The press conference ended in chaos. Brad watched from the locker room TV. His face appeared next to Alicia's split screen. Predator and prey. He killed the volume but couldn't mute the noise in his head. His partner, Officer Ruiz, spoke from the doorway. "You messed up, man. Should have just written the ticket." She was mouthy. Brad snapped. Ruiz shook his head. She was calm. "That's what's killing you." Later that evening, Alicia met with her lawyer, David Chen, in her living room. He set down his briefcase. "It's gone global. You've got the UN tweeting. We can leverage this, but it'll be ugly." Alicia nodded. "I'm ready for ugly." David studied her face. "You don't want just an apology, do you?" "No," she said. "I want change. For the women still in that cell." Maya listened quietly, eyes shining. David leaned forward. "Then we go public tomorrow. Press conference. You tell your story before they rewrite it." Alicia looked out at the skyline, the city glowing beneath a storm of noise. She said, "Tomorrow, I stop being a headline." He frowned. "What do you mean?" "I become a witness." Across the river, Brad sat in his dark apartment. News, still looping on the muted screen. His wife had taken their daughter to her mother's house. His phone was a graveyard of missed calls and threats. He poured whiskey into a chipped glass, muttering to himself, "Just another media witch hunt." But when Alicia's face filled the TV again, when he saw the calm steadiness in her eyes during a brief interview clip, he felt something new. Unease. The story was out of his control now, and she was no longer the one on trial. The hotel ballroom pulsed with camera flashes long before Alicia arrived. The podium stood beneath a banner, reading "Justice Through Transparency." Rows of reporters leaned forward, notebooks poised, lenses waiting. When Alicia stepped out, the room hushed. No makeup, no designer gown, just a black suit and a quiet fury she no longer tried to disguise. Her lawyer, David Chen, stood beside her. "Ms. Monroe will make a statement," he said. "Then, take limited questions." Alicia gripped the podium. The microphone crackled. "3 nights ago," she began, voice steady, "I was arrested for allegedly rolling through a stop sign. I complied. I identified myself. I was still handcuffed and humiliated in the rain." Cameras clicked, rapid, relentless. "I wasn't arrested for what I did," she continued. "I was arrested for who I am, a black woman driving a nice car in the wrong part of town." Murmurs rippled. One reporter muttered, "Here it comes." But Alicia pressed on. "I am not here for sympathy," she said. "I'm here because this isn't just my story. It's the story of anyone who's ever been silenced, dismissed, or made to feel less human behind flashing lights." Her words hit like measured strikes.com, but devastating. From the back, Maya watched tears blur the camera screen. She'd filmed Alicia countless times. Never like this. A reporter shouted, "Do you plan to sue the department?" David nodded slightly. Alicia met the question head. "Yes, not for money. For accountability." Another voice. "What do you say to people claiming you're using fame to stir outrage?" Alicia leaned closer to the mic. "If visibility makes injustice harder to ignore, then yes, I'm using it." The room erupted in murmurs again. David stepped forward, closing the session, but Alicia raised a hand. "One more thing," she said. "Officer Hensley, if you're watching, you could have apologized. Instead, you doubled down. I forgive you, but I won't protect you." Flashbulbs popped like small explosions. At the precinct, Brad watched from a corner of the break room. The TV glowed, sound muted but message deafening. "Forgive you," he mouthed. Ruiz glanced at him. "You should have kept your mouth shut. Now you're the department's problem." Brad snapped, "They're throwing me under the bus." Ruiz shrugged. "Maybe you built the road." Chief Donnelly entered. "Hensley, my office." Brad followed, pulse tight. Inside, the chief's desk was buried in paperwork and phone logs. You've been placed on administrative leave, Donnelly said flatly. For what? Doing my job. Asterisk for embarrassing this department on national television. Brad clenched his fists. You know the streets. You know what I deal with every night. I know what professionalism looks like. The chief cut in. And that wasn't it. Brad stared at the floor. The silence between them was thick with everything unsaid. Loyalty, denial, fear. Donnelly sighed. Turn in your badge until the investigation's done. Back at the hotel, the press conference dissolved into chaos. Reporters chasing sound bites, flashes following Alicia as security guided her through the crowd. In the car, Maya exhaled shakily. You killed it. Alicia shook her head. No, I survived it. Her phone buzzed again. Thousands of new mentions, statements from activists, and one unexpected message from Senator Lydia Grant. Let's talk about reform. She stared at it, unreadable. For the first time since the arrest, she felt the direction shift, her pain turning into leverage. Outside, protesters gathered signs reading Justice for Alicia, accountability now. Their chants echoed through downtown, blending with sirens in the distance. Maya whispered, You started something. Alicia looked out at the swelling crowd. No, she said. We all did. They just finally heard us. As their car pulled away, the flashing lights behind them were no longer police sirens. They were cameras capturing change. And somewhere across town, in a dim apartment filled with silence, Brad Hensley poured another drink, the sound of her voice still playing in his head, the one line he couldn't escape. I forgive you, but I won't protect you. The backlash came fast. By Monday morning, Alicia's phone was a storm of threats, fake stories, and slander. Headlines twisted her words. Anonymous accounts flooded her feeds. Lying model, race baiter, attention seeker. The internet turned cruel with precision. In her kitchen, the television droned police unions respond to Monroe's accusations. While she stirred coffee she didn't drink. Her reflection in the dark glass window looked tired but unbroken. Maya entered, holding her laptop. You need to see this. Alicia glanced at the screen. A police union spokesperson stood behind a podium, flanked by uniformed officers. Officer Hensley acted appropriately. He declared, We reject any insinuation of racial bias. Ms. Monroe's celebrity status doesn't put her above the law. Alicia's jaw tightened. There it is. They're closing ranks, Maya said. Chief Donnelly hasn't released the full body cam footage. They're protecting him. Alicia turned off the TV. Then we find another way. At the precinct, the mood was colder than the tile floors. Brad sat in an interrogation room, not as a suspect, but close enough. Chief Donnelly faced him across the table. You understand this investigation is for optics, the chief said quietly. You're suspended, but they'll clear you once the noise dies down. Brad frowned. So I just sit here, while she ruins my life. The chief's eyes hardened. You ruined it the second you put cuffs on the wrong person. Brad scoffed. You're afraid of her fame. I'm afraid of what she represents, Donnelly said, and you should be too. He left Brad alone with the buzzing fluorescent light, the sound now like guilt taking physical form. That evening, Alicia met David in a dimly lit office, filled with folders and muted urgency. They're coming after you publicly, he said, sliding a newspaper across the desk. The headline read, Supermodel fabricates racism claim. Police sources say Alicia didn't flinch. Let them. Your sponsors are wavering. The department's PR machine is working overtime. They'll try to smear your credibility before this hits court. She looked him straight in the eye. Then we show them what truth looks like. David hesitated. That kind of exposure comes with a cost. They'll dig into your past, every word, every mistake. I'm not perfect, she said, but I'm not lying. He nodded. Then we build this case around more than you, around everyone they've buried. Maya, seated quietly nearby, whispered, the women in that cell. Alicia's voice softened. Exactly. 2 nights later, someone hacked Alicia's email. Private messages and photos leaked across social media. The tabloids pounced. Maya found her on the balcony, phone dock, wind tugging at her robe. You can't let them break you, Maya said. Alicia exhaled slowly. They're trying to make me ashamed again. But you're not. No, she said. I'm angry. Her anger wasn't loud. It was surgical, precise, a weapon honed by humiliation. Across the city, Brad met with a lawyer, provided by the union. The man's voice was clipped. They're offering to let you resign quietly. No trial, no badge, but no charges. Brad's pride flared. I didn't do anything wrong. You embarrassed the department, the lawyer said. That's worse than being wrong. Brad slammed his fist on the table. She's destroying me. She's telling the truth, the lawyer replied coldly. That's what's destroying you. Back in her apartment, Alicia drafted a new statement for social media. No PR filters, no lawyer edits, just her words. They leaked my private life to shame me. I expected it, but every woman who's ever been silenced knows this pattern. You discredit the victim, not the crime. Not this time. #truth stays. Within hours, it trended again, not against her, but for her. Celebrities, activists, even officers' families shared it. The backlash began to fracture. David called late that night. They blinked, he said. The body cam footage has been subpoenaed. Alicia's eyes closed. Relief wasn't joy, it was endurance rewarded. They fought back, she said quietly. Now, it's our turn. In the precinct's evidence room, a technician pulled the sealed drive from a drawer, labeled Case for 1A, Monroe. The footage transferred, encrypted, duplicated for court. For the first time, Brad realized the truth he'd buried behind authority was about to speak louder than his badge ever could. And Alicia, across the city, felt the storm's direction shift again, not toward peace, but toward reckoning. Brad Hensley woke to silence. His wife's side of the bed was empty, sheets cold, the coffee pot on the counter was dry, a note beside it, staying with Mom, don't call. He crumpled it in his hand. Outside, reporters waited, like vultures. The news vans never left now. Every time he opened his blinds, cameras flashed. Every time he turned on the TV, there he was, his smirk frozen on every channel. He turned it off and stared at his reflection instead. Puffy eyes, red cheeks, a man pretending to be in control while the world laughed. A knock. He opened the door to Ruiz. You look like hell, Ruiz said. Brad grunted. What do you want? They're talking about indictments. Internal Affairs is turning everything over to the DA. Let them, Brad muttered. They'll see I did my job. Ruiz leaned against the doorframe. You really believe that? Brad said nothing. You planted your pride in a badge that was never meant to protect everyone, Ruiz said quietly. Now it's cracking, and you don't know who you are without it. Brad's face hardened. You sound like her. Ruiz sighed. Maybe you should have listened. He left, closing the door softly, the sound somehow louder than shouting. At City Hall, Alicia stood before the ethics board, dressed simply, her posture calm. David Chen sat beside her, a laptop open with the paused body cam footage. The lead investigator cleared his throat. Ms. Monroe, for the record, this is the unedited recording from Officer Hensley's patrol unit. Yes, she said. The screen flickered to life. Rain headlights. Brad's voice, cold and clipped. You people always make it harder than it has to be. A sharp inhale ran through the room. The sound was inescapable, the tone, the contempt, undeniable. Alicia didn't look away. When it ended, David leaned forward. No further commentary is necessary. The board members murmured among themselves. Alicia's heart pounded, not from fear, but from the weight of exposure. The words she'd lived through were now public record and could no longer be denied. That night, Brad drove aimlessly through backstreets, his suspension letter on the seat beside him. The radio replayed clips from Alicia's press statement, her calm dismantling of his authority. At a red light, he spotted two teenagers holding signs, Justice for Alicia. They laughed when they saw him in the patrol car. He sped off, humiliation clawing at him. He ended up at his father's house on the edge of town. The old man opened the door, jaw tight. Boy, you've brought shame on this family. Brad dropped into a chair. You taught me to be tough. I taught you to be right, his father snapped. You forgot the difference. They sat in silence. The TV in the corner showed Alicia's face again. His father muttered, that woman's got more dignity than the whole department combined. Brad couldn't respond. He didn't want to hear it, yet some part of him did. Meanwhile, Alicia scrolled through messages of support, teachers, nurses, mothers, men who'd seen the footage and couldn't unsee it. She replied to one, your courage gives me strength. She didn't notice her hands trembling until Maya touched her arm. You okay? Alicia nodded slowly. It's strange, the more they expose, the less they can hurt me. Maya smiled faintly, because now everyone's watching. No, Alicia said, because now I'm not hiding. 3 days later, Brad was summoned to a private departmental hearing. No cameras, just gray walls, stale air, and authority, stripped bare. Chief Donnelly sat across from him. You're being referred to the district attorney for possible civil rights violations. Brad's jaw clenched. So that's it. Years on the force, gone because of one woman's word. The chief leaned forward. Not her word. Your actions, the badge doesn't erase them anymore. Brad looked down. For the first time, he didn't argue. That evening, Alicia appeared on Nightline. The interviewer asked, "Do you feel justice is being served?" Alicia paused. "Justice isn't a feeling. It's proof. We're just starting to see it." "What would you say to Officer Hensley if he were watching?" Her voice softened. "I'd tell him, I hope he learns, because change means nothing if the people who caused the pain never face themselves." The interviewer nodded. "And you, how are you?" Alicia exhaled, tired, but still standing. In his car, Brad watched that interview alone. He didn't throw the remote this time. He didn't curse. He just sat silent, the hum of regret louder than the TV. Outside, sirens passed in the distance. Not for him, not yet, but close enough to feel like warning. For the first time in weeks, he didn't see Alicia as the enemy. He saw her as the mirror he'd avoided too long. And for the first time in his life, he didn't look away. The courthouse was colder than Alicia expected. Marble floors, echoing footsteps, the faint metallic clatter of handcuffs somewhere down the hall, all sterile, all rehearsed. She sat at the plaintiff's table beside David Chen. Papers spread before her. Cameras weren't allowed inside, but she could feel their presence beyond the doors, waiting to dissect every outcome. "Stay composed," David murmured. "They'll try to provoke you." "I'm past provocation," she said quietly. Across the room, Brad entered with his attorney. His suit looked borrowed, his eyes sleepless. The courtroom's murmurs hushed as the judge appeared. "All rise." The trial of Monroe v. City of Delray Police Department had begun. The prosecution started with the body cam footage. The screen flickered to life. Rain, headlights, and the echo of Brad's voice filling the courtroom. "You people always make it harder than it has to be." The words hung heavy. Even the air conditioner seemed to stop humming. Brad stared at the table, jaw locked. But everyone saw it, the subtle flinch when his own cruelty came back to life in surround sound. David rose. "The defense will claim this is one bad moment, but racism isn't a moment. It's a system that rewards those who weaponize authority." He gestured toward Alicia. "She wasn't arrested. She was profiled." Brad's attorney countered smoothly. "Officer Hensley acted within procedure. My client did not know the plaintiff's identity at the time." Alicia's gaze sharpened. That was the point, she thought. David responded, "If he didn't know who she was, then why did he assume she was dangerous?" The defense hesitated. Because she was black." David cut in. The objection came too late. The silence that followed said everything. When Alicia took the stand, the courtroom leaned in. Her voice was calm but carried like thunder. "He told me to step out of the car," she said. "I asked why. He didn't answer. I complied anyway. Then he handcuffed me." "Did you resist at any point?" "No." "Did he inform you of your rights?" "He didn't speak to me like I had any." Brad shifted in his seat. He could feel the judge's eyes, the juror's judgment, his own pulse in his throat. David nodded. "Miss Monroe, what did that moment mean to you?" Alicia looked toward the jury. "It meant that no amount of success, no level of respectability, could protect me from being seen as less than human. It meant that my existence was still an offense to someone's power." The words struck harder than any legal argument. Then it was Brad's turn. He took the stand with forced composure. "I was following protocol," he said. "Her behavior was calm." David interrupted. "Non-compliant," Brad finished, voice tight. David tilted his head. "What does non-compliant mean, officer?" Brad hesitated. "She questioned my order." "Did she yell?" "No." "Did she threaten you?" "No." "Then, what exactly made you feel threatened?" Brad's throat constricted. The courtroom waited. His lawyer whispered, "Answer." Finally he said, barely audible, "I don't know." David's voice was steady. "You don't know yet. You cuffed her. That uncertainty cost a woman her dignity. Do you understand that?" Brad didn't answer. The judge leaned forward. "Officer Hensley, answer the question." He swallowed hard. "Yes." The courtroom fell into silence again, the kind that felt like truth pressing on every wall when closing arguments began. David spoke first. "This case isn't about a single night," he said. "It's about what happens when accountability becomes optional. The law is meant to serve, not to dominate. Ms. Monroe's courage forces us to confront what we've normalized, and that's why we're here." Brad's lawyer tried to reframe the incident as a misunderstanding, a miscommunication under pressure. But the jurors' faces said otherwise. By the time the judge adjourned, The outcome felt inevitable. Hours later, the verdict came. Liability affirmed, damages awarded, recommendation for federal review of department practices. Alicia closed her eyes. David touched her arm gently. "You did it," she whispered. "We did what we could." Across the aisle, Brad sat motionless. The gavel struck final, merciless. He removed his badge from his pocket, stared at it for a long moment, then set it down on the table. The weight of metal never felt heavier. As Alicia left the courtroom, reporters swarmed the steps outside, microphones thrust forward, questions shouted, cameras flashing. "Ms. Monroe, how do you feel?" She paused at the top of the stairs. Rain had started again, soft, cleansing. "I feel seen," she said simply, "and that's the beginning of change." Her words echoed across the plaza, quiet, resolute, unstoppable. Inside, Brad lingered alone, staring at the empty witness stand where she had spoken. For the first time in his life, the truth didn't sound like accusation, it sounded like consequence. The morning after the verdict, the city woke different. Rain had rinsed the streets clean, but tension still hung in the air, like smoke that refused to clear. Alicia sat by her apartment window, coffee untouched, the skyline veiled in fog. Her phone buzzed nonstop, messages from activists, journalists, fashion brands, old friends, every notification a reminder. The world finally believed her, but belief didn't erase memory. David's voice played in her mind. "You've changed things." Maybe, but change never felt this heavy. Across town, Brad Hensley stood in the station for the last time. His locker was half empty, uniform folded, badge gone, nameplate removed. The walls, once a blur of routine, now felt foreign. Ruiz appeared at the doorway. "Internal Affairs just closed the file," he said quietly. "Termination upheld." Brad didn't respond. Ruiz added, "For what it's worth, I think they wanted a scapegoat." Brad looked up. "You think I didn't deserve it?" Ruiz hesitated. "I think you never asked why you needed control so bad." Brad shut the locker. "Guess I'm finding out now." As he walked out, no one said goodbye. Just the hum of fluorescent lights and the hollow click of the door closing behind him. That night, Alicia attended a gala, not as a model, but as a guest of honor. Cameras flashed, lights danced across the marble floor, and applause rose when she entered. Yet her eyes searched for quiet corners when she took the stage. She didn't read from a script. "I used to believe silence kept me safe," she said. "It didn't. It only protected the people who wanted me quiet." She looked out over the audience. Lawmakers, influencers, ordinary citizens. "This isn't just about one arrest," she continued. "It's about systems that mistake arrogance for authority, accountability for betrayal, dignity for defiance." Applause swelled, but Alicia didn't smile. She let the silence after linger, the kind that made people think instead of cheer. Outside, protesters still chanted, though the tone had shifted from anger to purpose. Banners read, "Reform the system," not "one more name." Maya filmed from the edge of the crowd. When Alicia emerged from the building, they embraced. No words, just quiet relief. "You still filming?" Alicia asked. "Always," Maya said. "But this is yours." Alicia nodded. "No, it's everyone's." They watched the crowd ripple with energy. Ordinary faces turned toward something larger than outrage. Persistence. Meanwhile, in a dim apartment on the city's south side, Brad sat in front of his muted television. The news played footage of Alicia speaking, confident, composed, unbroken. He turned the volume up just enough to hear her final words from the gala. "Forgiveness isn't freedom, it's a demand for responsibility." Brad stared at the screen for a long time, then reached for his phone. He opened a new message, typed 3 words, then deleted them. He set the phone down and stepped outside. The city lights glowed, distant, unreachable. For the first time, he realized how small his authority had been, compared to the damage it caused. The night was quiet, except for the faint sound of chants drifting from downtown. Days later, the city council announced the creation of the Monroe Act, mandating transparency in all police stops and establishing a civilian review board. The story had become more than her name, more than his downfall. It had become policy. Alicia watched the announcement alone, tears caught between pride and exhaustion. She whispered, "It cost everything, but maybe it was worth it." Outside her window, the city moved slower, thoughtful, altered, and somewhere in that rhythm, between justice and grief, a new kind of silence settled, not the silence of fear, but of reckoning. 6 months later, the city felt unfamiliar. The headlines had quieted. The crowds dispersed. The chants replaced by slow reform. But beneath the calm, something had shifted, subtle, irreversible. Alicia walked through downtown one early morning, coat wrapped tight against the wind. A mural stretched across a concrete wall, her face painted in soft strokes. Beneath the words, "Dignity is not negotiable." She stopped to look. A young girl on a skateboard slowed beside her. "Hey, you're her, right?" the girl asked wide-eyed. Alicia smiled faintly. "I used to be." The girl grinned. "My school made us read about you. You made them change the rules." Then she was gone. Wheels clicking, down the street. Alicia stood there a moment longer, unsure whether to feel proud or hollow. Later, she visited her mother's grave. Fresh flowers, light drizzle, the air thick with memory. "You were right," she whispered. "Change doesn't come from modeling perfect. It comes from surviving truth." Her phone buzzed again, this time a message from David. "Monroe, act passed statewide. IT's real." Alicia stared at the screen, tears rising before she could stop them. For the first time in months, the victory felt tangible. Not a headline, not applause, but permanence. She whispered. Finally, across town, Brad Hensley sat in a community center, folding chairs arranged in a small circle. The room smelled of coffee and damp carpet. A social worker spoke softly. "Today's discussion is about accountability, not as punishment, but as recognition." Brad kept his eyes down. He hadn't worn a badge in months. The silence in his life had become its own kind of sentence. When his turn came, he hesitated. "Then, I used to think respect came from authority. It doesn't. It comes from restraint. And I didn't have any." The group nodded, not forgiving, but acknowledging. He added, almost to himself, "You can't undo what you normalize." The words hung in the air like confession. That night, a televised interview aired. Alicia, sitting across from a journalist in a calm studio. "Do you think justice was served?" the interviewer asked. Alicia took a breath. "Justice isn't a moment. It's maintenance. It needs tending every day, or it dies." The interviewer paused. "And what about Officer Hensley?" Alicia didn't blink. "I don't think about him. I think about everyone who won't be next." The screen faded to black. Weeks later, Alicia returned to modeling, not for the runway, but for a charity campaign supporting diversity in law enforcement. When the photographer asked for her angle, she looked directly into the lens. "Straight on," she said, "no shadows." The shutter clicked one frame, one statement. The photo would later go viral again. Captioned simply, "She faced the system and didn't look away." That evening, she stood on her balcony overlooking the city. Streetlights glimmered like quiet constellations, and from somewhere below came the faint hum of traffic, the rhythm of a city still learning how to breathe differently. Maya's voice rang from inside. "You coming in?" "In a minute," Alicia said. She looked out one last time. The night was calm. No sirens, no flashing lights, just space. For the first time, she didn't feel watched. She felt seen. And that, she thought, was the real victory.